Struggling to leverage Microsoft Enterprise solutions? At C5 Insight, we understand the intersection between technology, business, and people. Contact us to learn more.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. This is the first of a three-part series Grant did as a keynote for C5 Leadership Summit. So feel free to get signed up for the next 2 weeks. We're excited to have Grant Dess from Microsoft talk to us today about what it means to be an AI-first organization. For now, I'll let Grant take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Welcome. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for joining us. My name is Grant Dess, again with Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft a little over 7 years now. Had a few different roles within the company. Have seen a ton of change, especially here in the last year or so. And today I'm really excited to share with you a bit about the rise of the frontier firm, just leading the way with both AI and Copilot. So we'll get into a little bit of that. And like Tracy said, we'll have some time at the end for questions. But we'll just jump right in and get started. The first thing I wanted to kind of go over, if you're wondering what we mean by a frontier firm, this is actually something that came from a Work Trend Index annual report. Microsoft does this every year. They look at different trends in how people are working, right? Thus a Work Trend Index. This year was all about the year the frontier firm is born. When we talk about that, this is a frontier firm is specifically one where AI is the primary focus, right? So they are AI first. The name of the game with frontier firms is speed, time to value, being agile, trying to figure out how to operate in a whole new way where you're able to generate value faster. So that is what frontier firms are all about. Today, we're going to look at what makes up a frontier firm, how that could be something. I'm guessing in the fact that you joined this webinar, either you or your organization are somewhere already on that spectrum, on that journey, right, to becoming a frontier firm. If you haven't even started that journey, if nothing else, I imagine that you're starting to feel that in who you compete with. Because we're seeing a lot of these AI startups where they don't have technical debt, right? They don't have to dig themselves out of a hole of, these technologies or these systems that they've had for decades. They're able to start first with AI and lead the charge with a ton of speed and be able to hit the ground running. So I do want to encourage you, if you haven't read this report, I have the link down at the bottom here. Check that out. We are really just kind of scratching the surface today. Some of the main points of becoming a frontier firm. There's a lot of really good depth there that I would encourage you to check out. So as we get started, I first wanted to acknowledge the fact this is not just Microsoft making things up. This is not just us coming out with some thoughts of our own. This is all based on thorough research. We survey 31,000 people across many different countries, looking at the entire world and looking at how people have worked in the past, how people are working right now, and then projecting, looking at those patterns, at how the world is changing and those trends that are coming. So this is all based on looking at those patterns, looking at the future of work, and how we see that progressing over time. So one of the first things to note, and this is surprising to a lot of folks, is that employees at a frontier firm actually say that their company is thriving much more than those who are not in a frontier firm. So 71% of employees at a frontier firm would describe their company as thriving, versus worldwide workers of only 37% would say the same thing. Going even deeper on this, the majority of those employees actually say their work is more fulfilling. So when they have an AI focus, they're able to do work that is more meaningful to them. They're able to take some of the mundane process, the mundane work that they have to do in a given day. They're able to offload that to AI, right? To be able to have an agent or an assistant take some of that work off their plate. They're able to focus on oftentimes what they were actually hired to do. I think with most roles, it's happened to me over time as well, where you start looking at the time spent and you say, boy, I'm really only spending maybe half my time doing what I was actually hired to do. And it's the rest has gotten caught up in reporting or meetings or other things that actually don't reflect the job role itself at all. So that's where a lot of this is coming from, looking at the research here of these frontier firms. There's really three main phases in a journey to becoming a frontier firm, and this is the focus of today. This is a lot of what we'll be talking about. The first phase here is a human with an assistant. So you have a human, that human has an AI assistant that's helping them organize their work, thinking through either different processes or thoughts that they have, working faster as well. So we'll dive into that here in a moment. Phase two is similar. You have an assistant, but then you also have a team of agents, and those agents are able to go take care of certain tasks that the human prompts them to do, right? So a good example of this is researching a company, right? You might need to research a company. That's something that I could spend the next hour, hour and a half looking at a bunch of different websites, reading reports, pulling some information. That's going to be a little bit more time intensive process. Instead, I can have an agent go scour different sites for me. I could direct them to certain sites. They can go do that and then come back to me with those results later. They can look at that much faster than I can. They can drill down and summarize those things much quicker as well. So it's a specific task that me as the human in the loop is asking that agent to perform. And then phase three it's different, right? This is even a step beyond that, where you actually have teams of agents working together and running either parts of the business, parts of a process, but they're running much of that end to end. And they might even be working with other human teams or other agent teams in addition to that. So this one is, we're not seeing organizations too far into phase three yet. There's a few, right? Or there's pockets of those organizations where this is happening. For most organizations that we talk with, they are somewhere in between phase one and two, right? And that can also vary a lot by even department. This isn't necessarily an end-to-end where the entire organization stays at the same point in time. You might have certain departments pull ahead to phase two quickly because they have a certain process they want to do. You might have, some of the organization have access to an assistant, but they're primarily just using that part. And then some, obviously, where you've got teams of agents and pulling into phase three as well. Okay, so humans with assistants. The first thing to mention here, and this made me actually reflect a little bit about executive assistants I've worked with in the past. And this was even prior to Microsoft, some amazing assistants who they knew all of the information about an organization, right? They knew where to find it, who to talk to. But even thinking about how amazing they were, they still had a first day, right? And at the beginning, we had to train them. We had to train assistants, right? Here's where things are, here's who to talk to. Now, over time, those agents, or excuse me, the human assistants actually ended up training us as other employees because that knowledge grew and they knew where to find information within the organization and how to go about it. The same is true with where we are with AI assistants right now. Many of those are in their first days. They are as unproductive as they will ever be, but they're improving at a rapid rate, right? So it's something where those AI assistants are really helping, again, organize thoughts, get those together. The other piece of this is that with these AI assistants, it's when you think about all the knowledge in the world, right? We are now able to tap into that unlimited knowledge. And this is a huge difference in the way that we can work. We've had the internet, right? We've had search results, but now we're able to ask very detailed questions and get back very thorough, detailed knowledge from specific sources or from broader sources as we direct those agents. So that is one of the things that this Work Trend Index analyzed a lot, and it talks about intelligence on tap, knowledge on tap. And that is changing how we work because as many knowledge workers, They could hang their whole career on the fact that I've accumulated all this knowledge over the last few decades. I can basically just sit back, and as people need that knowledge, they call me, they email me, they text me, whatever, and I'm sending that knowledge out, and that produces value, right? That produces impact. That is changing, and that has changed already. So that is where these things, these are happening quick. These assistants are now providing a lot of that accumulated knowledge to where we can all tap into that. And it's more about the human element, right? How do we create based with that knowledge? How do we make better decisions? How do we drive business? How do we train other people and connect with other people? We actually will tear into some of those aspects in 2 weeks in a future webinar, if that is of interest to you. So anyway, that is the human with assistant level. One of the main reasons that we need this assistant so badly is because we are super distracted. Employees are interrupted every 2 minutes. I think this is actually generous. What that means is, as you watch this webinar, you've been interrupted probably 4 or 5 times already. Even though I'm presenting, I've probably been interrupted a couple times by pop-ups, right? People pinging me, phone calls, emails. I don't have to describe this to you. We all have a phone, and we know that every time we look at it, we're being distracted, right? So we need help with the work that we're doing to stay on task, to stay focused. And even though we have this knowledge, we need help in being more productive this way. This actually, if you think about every 2 minutes, it comes out to be 275 times a day we're distracted, and we're interrupted in our flow of work. So that leads us to phase 2 here, which is where we have, again, these tasks that need to be done, and the humans are directing agents to go perform these tasks for us. This is evolving, actually, the org charts that we have, where, again, traditionally, this would be more of a hierarchy of which humans report to which humans. There might be some value still in that going forward, but a lot of this is transitioning to more of a work chart, right? So here's the work that needs to be done. We have humans, we have agents, who is doing what, and what is most productive, what is most valuable, and especially for the humans, what is also helping them thrive, what is helping them do meaningful work that they care about and that they enjoy doing. The difference here, and the reason for it, is because we have a capacity gap, right? And this is, again, what this work trend analysis found, is that 82% of global workers actually agree that they don't have enough time or enough energy, right? Think about burnout. Think about just at the end of the day feeling wiped out because you had so many, again, you've got the job that you were hired to do, but then you've got all this other work that needs to be done with reporting and with, summarizing data, and just, again, all these distractions that we have trying to go through that. You don't have enough time to do the work that matters. So if you have 82% of your global workers saying, I'm at capacity, right? I'm pretty full. But then you have 56% of leaders saying the work that these humans are doing is actually not enough. We need more productivity, right? We need more time and energy. Quickly, you see the disconnect here, right? You see that there's a problem. So what happens is most leaders, 87%, almost the overwhelming majority there, they are confident that AI agents are the answer to this capacity gap that we have. So when you think about how can, instead of having humans try to do it all, what makes sense to offload to AI? What does AI do well? And what do humans not like doing, right? Again, back to the energy portion of it. Humans might have, even if they have time to do it, if they hate doing it, and we're having them do it day in, day out, we're burning them out. We might lose those valuable employees to competitors, whatever the case may be. So again, this is a really a key thing where this is how we can use AI agents to scale our businesses. And this is across all different industries. So just as an example here, you see manufacturing, CPG, retail, probably as expected, right? These are these are some of the industries that are most confident in how they can use AI agents as digital team members. But if you look even at the bottom of these of this chart, education, government, it's still 75% are confident that this will be effective, that this would be something within the next year and a half, that are some ways that they can provide value to their human members to be able to offload some of that work. And then our third phase here are human-led but agent-operated teams. Again, we mentioned that this is something where we have teams of agents. Those are going off doing work, making decisions, running processes, coming back to the human periodically, almost as a check-in. And again, think about human teams, right? If you have a CXO and they see a strategy, some tactics, they see some ways that business needs to be done differently, they might form a human committee and have them go off for 6 months and do work, do research, try things, report back in 6 months on that effort. This is very similar, except that it's using AI agents as those teams. Those agents are going off, they're working with other human teams, they're working with other agent teams, performing that work and coming back to the human, to where the human can then decide, are we on track? Do we need to change? What do we need to adjust? That is the future, right? That is where a lot of this is going. So it does beg the question, how many agents do we need? How many humans do we need? And this is a question that is going to become more and more important as we go forward. It's something where I know at Microsoft that question is being asked constantly. How do we, and it's something too where it's not necessarily the same ratio would not be for all of the company, right? You might have a different ratio of human to agents in HR than you would for sales, than you would for customer service. It depends on what type of technology you're using, how high touch that might be with customers, as to if you need AI in the mix or not. There are certain departments, certain types of work where you need many more humans to do that effectively. And even based on your industry and the type of, the business that makes you unique, those are things you want to consider as you think about the human to agent ratio. This is also something, to get started on the human to agent ratio, when you think about processes that you already have in place that are either documented very well or they're semi-automated, a lot of times those are places to start where you could increase the AI part of that to where the humans are then, they have some time freed up where they can focus on other parts of the business or other details of their work that they may have not had time to do. But this is a critical ratio coming, and it's one to begin thinking about. It doesn't, you're not going to get it right right out of the gate. It's going to change over time. But as you begin thinking about that ratio, this will make a big difference for your business going forward. And I do want to point out too, we hear in the news every day about about layoffs, about AI replacing jobs. There are a lot of new jobs emerging though as well. And this is something to consider. Some of these might be short-term, some of these are long-term jobs though as well, where you think about if you've got teams of agents going out, who's building those agents, who's maintaining those agents, who's determining, if those agents are effective in what they're doing. We have on here ROI analysts. ROI is becoming a conversation that is happening constantly because, as we put forth effort in agents, right? Okay, at what scale does this make sense? Are we getting the return that we need on our investment? And then AI strategist, again, this is still very departmental, depending on where you're using those. Thinking through the strategy and rethinking how you do business in kind of this whole new era that we're in the middle of now. So in summary here, as we think about these phases of a frontier firm, when we think about the path forward, really three main things. First, I encourage you, if you haven't already, to start hiring your first digital employees. If your employees don't have access to an AI assistant, that is the best place to start. Of course, at Microsoft, we call that Copilot. That is our AI assistant. For many of you, if your organization has M365 for Office, things like that, most likely you have some free access to Copilot Chat, which is a great way to begin this journey with an AI assistant. And then you can determine what's effective and what's not and be able to build out those licenses or those needs from there. Second is to start thinking about that human to agent ratio. Start thinking about where that might make the most sense to invest. That can come in the form of a pilot with our amazing partners like C5 Insight. Start thinking about, here's an opportunity. If you have folks that have left your organization and you have roles to backfill, this is also a great place to consider that human to agent ratio. Okay, we have 10 jobs that need backfilling. Do we need to backfill all 10 of those? Could we backfill half of those and then start using agents in that stead, or just trying to think about that right balance. And then thirdly, I do encourage you to get to broad scale fast. I would say one of the biggest mistakes that we're seeing with our customers is that they say, let's buy 10 Copilot licenses, we'll give it to IT, and we'll just see what happens. The answer usually is nothing. Nothing will happen because either IT loves it and they use those licenses and the rest of the business doesn't see the vision, they don't understand the value there. Or IT, they love it for 2 weeks and then they forget they have it, they stop using it, they get distracted, right? 275 times a day. And then suddenly, those licenses are sitting on the shelf and 6 months later, we haven't made progress on kind of this AI journey. So the faster you can get to broad scale, again, Copilot Chat, great way to do that, to get folks used to using the tools, used to even talking to AI. It's different, right? It's a whole different motion. The faster you can get to broad scale, you'll see more of that enterprise-wide value and impact as you go. So thank you again for joining. I do encourage you to join us next week. We'll be talking a bit about Microsoft's own Copilot Customer Zero story. As you can imagine, we started using that. That was now about 1.5 years ago. And how we learned a ton of things on our own journey. We did many things right. We did many things wrong. And so I'm excited to share some of those lessons that we learned with you so that either you don't make the same mistakes or that you can learn from us as you go through your own journey as well. So that is all I have. Tracy, do we have any questions either from the audience or anything else to discuss today?
Yeah,
Great.
We have some questions come in. I am going to start off with, how does a company begin its journey to become a frontier firm, which I think you kind of started with, but what are the most common initial challenges faced during this transition?
Good question. I think, one of the biggest challenges that we see is it's one of two things, and it's almost two different extremes. One is where, kind of like I mentioned, customers say, boy, everybody's doing this, we should probably do something. And they kind of throw it out without a lot of direction or a lot of vision. And their folks get it and they don't know what to do with it, right? So, okay, I've got an AI assistant, but what should I be doing with it? I would encourage you, this is very different than most IT initiatives, right? If you turn it on and expect, boy, suddenly now all our employees are going to know how to do it. They need training, right? They need adoption, or like help with that adoption, because they're not just learning to use a new tool, but they're learning to work in new ways. And that human element of it, you just can't ignore it. It's really important for these types of transformations. It's something where, some folks will adopt it really quick. They're eager to do it. They are most likely already using it. But then there's others who they don't see the big picture yet, right? They don't see the value in it. But a lot of times your biggest critics can become your biggest advocates once that light bulb goes off and they see, boy, this actually saves me hours in a day. I suddenly have time to get my backlog done, right? I don't have to log on at midnight tonight to finish up work. because I had more time in the day to get done what I need to. So there's that extreme. And then on the other side, for some of our folks, some of our customers, they say, boy, we've got this idea for an agent and it's so complicated and it's so in depth, but boy, it's going to blow everybody away. Let's work on this for the next 3 months, right? And they go and build this perfect agent, but then their users don't know what to do with it, right? Because they were focused on that one piece of it and going for the really complex use case without, making sure that the users are on board with it. Sometimes it helps to start small. So that is something where, that's a challenge that we see a lot is a couple IT folks. I'm not picking on IT, but a lot of times, they have a great vision for an agent, but you also want to make sure that you've got the humans on board, the rest of the users knowing how to do that.
I couldn't agree with you more. We see it, and we see both sides so often, the unlimited forever planning. AI is changing hourly sometimes. So if you try to plan out for perfection, it's not going to get there just because it's changing.
Mhm.
So starting that small is definitely a fantastic suggestion. On the other side, it's more long term. I love doing things for, a very short amount of time. And then, as you said, I get distracted and all of a sudden out of sight, out of mind, and it kind of falls to the wayside. So that long-term plan, even those for little things too. So fantastic answer. Sure. I think we have time for one more question. With AI agents playing a larger role in business operations, how do you recommend organization balance that human to agent ratio? I know that you talked a little bit about it, but how do you balance it for optimal performance and accountability?
So accountability is a big piece of it, right? And I think what you mentioned, even in terms of, or I guess what I heard you say is, thinking about how to fail fast, right? Failure is not the goal, but as you try, especially with an AI to human ratio, what I would encourage is that, if right now, if it's 100% humans, start analyzing some of those departments where you think we can start, injecting AI, right? And again, a lot of times, if it's a very thought out process, if there's some processes there that are very defined, maybe they're already on their way to automation. It's about how can we make those a bit more autonomous, where the AI is running that process for us. That's a great scenario where you can begin digging into, okay, this human to AI ratio is probably a little too high. Maybe we can fine tune that a bit. And it's one of those where, again, failing fast, and I kind of use that in quotes, where, okay, we try, maybe you try to put too much AI in the mix. Having accountability there, evaluating what's working or is this too much, and being able to level that back out is important, right? Being able to, you have to keep the human feedback coming on those types of projects. Hey, how is, and it sounds like a weird question, but how are the humans feeling, right? Boy, this actually feels like it's completely out of our control now in a bad way. Okay, we need more humans in it, right? We need more maybe stops along the way. Humans in the loop for that process.
Absolutely. And I
Does
love
that
it.
answer the question?
It does. It does.
Okay.
It does help. And really, you're right. It's going to be a continual balancing act as you move forward, and consistent working with your existing employees and following and their success, their productivity, and even their going to the next level and how they're feeling and stuff as they're going through it, but absolutely supporting them. And each department has their own things that they hate doing that can probably be supported and helped with automation and AI. So I think it's fantastic. We are out of time. We're actually a minute over, but we have more questions. We can send them out. Feel free to log in another week for our Microsoft's Customer Zero story that Grant is going to cover. We look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.